Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a completely different, heavily data-backed approach to this concept of becoming a high-value woman. Now, if you've spent any time online lately, you've definitely seen this term thrown around, right? It's usually tied to dating or superficial metrics or seeking male attention. But today, we're stripping all of that away. We're looking at what it actually means to become a woman who genuinely values herself. We're talking self-respect, emotional maturity, discipline, and uncompromising independence. We've synthesized data from behavioral psychology and professional development to show you exactly how to build a life you personally respect, starting right now. So let's dive right in by looking at society's traditional, purely financial definition of high value. The financial services industry defines a high net worth individual based strictly on liquid assets, $1 million or more. But here's the problem. When we apply this external scorecard to our own personal lives, we get locked into this constant, gnawing need to prove ourselves to others. We chase external validation, which maybe leaves us feeling productive for a minute, but ultimately, it just leaves us empty. True value isn't a scorecard. It's completely intrinsic. It is built from the inside out. There's this fascinating concept from the investment world that perfectly illustrates our real goal here. In the collectibles market, scarcity outperforms novelty. The market always rewards intrinsic, enduring value over temporary hype. When you apply that to your own life, it completely shifts your perspective. A high-value woman isn't chasing the temporary hype of external validation or fleeting trends or someone else's approval. She's focused on building intrinsic, enduring personal value. She is cultivating qualities that are genuinely hard to replace. Let's start with Section 1, the inner foundation, emotional maturity, and self-respect. This brilliantly captures the difference between someone seeking validation and someone who possesses genuine self-worth. It's all about choosing the growth mindset. Someone with a fixed mindset views challenges, like a misstep in a relationship or a career setback, as a literal threat to their worth. They act defensively, they avoid feedback, but a high-value woman approaches life with intellectual humility. She treats challenges not as some permanent diagnosis of her abilities, but just as informative input. She seeks feedback proactively because her self-worth is secure enough to say, hey, I have room to grow. Now, getting there requires real emotional discipline. It's about letting your logical wise owl take control from your emotional guard dog through a really beautiful 4-step process of self-regulation. When you're triggered, let's say by a super frustrating text message, your emotional guard dog instantly wants to bite back and react. But high-value people pause. First, they identify and label the emotion. Second, they reappraise the long-term picture rather than just that momentary discomfort. Third, they regulate and decide on an adaptive response. And finally, they assert their needs clearly. It is the profound difference between just impulsively reacting and elegantly responding. And why does this matter so much? Because emotional intelligence, or EQ, accounts for a staggering 58% of success across all types of roles. It is literally your ultimate tool for inner stability. The data is incredibly clear on this. You could absolutely be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't handle conflict with composure, or if you constantly let your guard dog run the show, you are going to struggle. Cultivating this emotional maturity is exactly what gives a high-value woman her quiet, unshakable confidence. Moving on to Section 2, curating high-value activities and protecting your peace. To actually protect that peace, we first need to audit our days for LVAs, or low-value activities. These are endless distractions that drain your energy without driving any real impact or growth. Think about excessive doom scrolling on social media without a clear purpose, or getting totally bogged down in petty drama that doesn't serve your bigger picture. These activities give us the illusion of being busy, but honestly, they're often just a form of procrastination. They keep us stuck in the day-to-day, miles away from our actual goals. Instead, you've got to upgrade your time by consciously shifting your focus to high-value activities, making sure your energy is always aligned with your long-term independence. This means setting clear, measurable goals and prioritizing tasks that have the highest potential for growth, whether that's in your career, your education, or your own personal wellness. You batch your tasks to maximize efficiency, and you regularly review your progress. When you know you're spending your time well, you eliminate that constant underlying anxiety and step into a beautiful place of deep empowerment. Which brings us to Section 3, the art of boundaries and knowing when to walk away. A woman who genuinely values herself curates her inner circle incredibly carefully. She flat out refuses to settle for superficial, transactional dynamics and opts instead for transformational partnerships, romantic or platonic. In a transactional relationship, people are really just keeping score for quick wins and superficial features. But a transformational relationship, that requires multidimensional empathy, It's about stepping into someone else's shoes while they step into yours, completely focused on shared long-term goals. If a dynamic isn't transformational, a high-value woman knows it is perfectly fine to respectfully walk away. When you do face friction, though, you can borrow this brilliant strategy from advanced negotiation to gracefully uncover real roadblocks without ever being confrontational. It's called isolate and reframe. When someone pushes a boundary, you validate it, but you isolate it. You say, putting this specific issue aside for a moment, is there anything else holding us back? This is a real game changer because it instantly reveals if the issue they raised is the actual problem or just a smokescreen for something deeper. It lets you navigate conflict incredibly smoothly. Setting boundaries is essentially an act of self-love. But the secret here is that you absolutely must be willing to enforce the consequences. You have to surface tensions before they create fractures in your peace. If you're constantly putting the comfort of others ahead of your own, you are essentially teaching the world that you come second. You have to be calm, firm, and clear. If you say no, but you aren't willing to follow through when someone oversteps, you're just empowering them to do it again. A high-value woman loves herself enough to hold her line. And finally, Section 4, investing in your independence, the future vision. True independence is built by cultivating high-income workplace skills. These are what ensure you remain resilient, adaptable, and completely self-sufficient no matter how crazy the world gets. The World Economic Forum highlights these exact skills for a reason. Analytical thinking lets you break down complex problems objectively. Agility means you can adapt to new situations without losing your footing. And leadership is your ability to motivate and guide, even if it's literally just guiding your own life. These skills are your armor. They guarantee you can always rely on yourself. Mastering skills like active listening requires practicing the WAIT principle. It's this quiet form of intellectual humility that acts as social oil in your relationships. WAIT stands for Why Am I Talking? It's such a simple yet powerful tool. Before you jump in with a defense or a quick judgment, you just pause. This keeps your mind genuinely open to new possibilities and stops misunderstandings in their tracks. It also shows immense confidence because you don't feel this desperate need to always be the smartest or loudest person in the room. When you combine all these skills into a crystal clear sense of purpose, it's not just a nice, fluffy idea. Research actually shows that individuals with high purpose experience a 46% reduced risk of mortality. Think about that. It is literal biological optimization. Identifying your unique skills and applying them toward goals that genuinely matter to you protects your cognitive function, it buffers against stress, and it literally extends your life. Defining your own purpose isn't just empowering, it is profoundly healthy. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, maybe even write down in your journal. Reflect on what kind of value you are truly building in your own life. Are you exhausted from chasing a transactional, external scorecard? Or are you ready to do the internal work, the emotional regulation, the boundary setting, the skill building, to cultivate a life of undeniable, enduring, intrinsic value? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to take these practical habits and start applying them to your daily routines today.